A great meeting point, convenient light meals, hot and cold beverages, or a quick snack on the go. What's your order for the day? We don't just say, we do. It's the Stain City way.
Hello and welcome to Real Talk with me, Anele. It is an honor and a great pleasure for me today to host a woman who heads one of the most powerful institutions in our constitutional democracy. Armed with a BProc, an LLB, and a higher diploma in corporate and tax law, she has stepped into a role where fighting corruption, abuse of power, and state resources becomes her priority. Her role as defender of the people, the proverbial gogo Dlamini, without fear or favor, comes with its challenges. Prior to this position, she worked as a senior researcher at the South African Human Rights Commission, where she was tasked with compiling a country report on the status of human rights in South Africa. She is no stranger to the office, as she has worked for the Public Protector South Africa for 6 years as a senior investigator. Okay, highly qualified. Welcome, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Hey, man.
Hey, thank you.
Do you know what I'm laughing at? I saw your suit and I was like, yeah, she dresses so well for somebody who must have gotten hand-me-downs her entire life, because if you are 7 out of 9, you don't get new clothes.
No, I buy, now I'm working.
Now you're
so
fine.
Now I can buy for myself those nice clothes.
But back then...
By then it was not, no.
Because me, I was number
Not
3, ne?
and
I know what hand-me-downs are, okay? He plays, I figuring out.
I can imagine. But anyway, you were enjoying it, isn't it?
Of course
and
I was.
those shoes, they
just
buy
know.
a big size and they say, no, you'll grow with it.
You grow into it, and then you shuffle your way to wherever you're going, and finally the day they fit, you like, Senkon. So you are 7th born of 9 kids.
Of 9 kids, yes. My older sister has passed on.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even know her. But I'm the 7th child of the 8, which is surviving. We are 6 girls, so I'm the last born.
Yeah, the girl side.
With the girl side. There's a brother.
And what's the relationship like with the girls?
Very, very close
Your best friends, ne?
They are my best friends. I mean, they are my best friends as we speak, because most of the time I spend a lot of time with them, and at home as well. When we do anything, when there's functions, when there's
no need for a caterer. There's 6 of you.
Yes.
One must stand by the potatoes, the other one by the pumpkins,
exactly.
spinach,
But now we old, and we were trying to pass that to our children.
Yeah.
And no, they are not.
Doesn't look like it's working out.
It's not.
The bon freeze?
No, they just sit there and they talk and
Mom, why don't you get a caterer?
Yes.
Get a caterer so that we can all relax.
Exactly. That's what they do. That's what they do, and we'll have to get a caterer, but as well ourselves. So we say, you know, we're working.
You're tired now.
We can empower another person who's specializing in that particular field. Well, I've got a niece who's also a good cook.
Okay.
She's having a catering company, so we normally say, okay, you have this specialty, can you do it for us? We will pay you. At least empowering her as well.
Are you guys in a WhatsApp group?
We have a family group. Call it Mdlangwe. That's my...
Is it your clan name?
Yes, my clan name.
Okay.
Yes, Mkhwebane Mdlangwe. So we call it Mdlangwe, and we have all these conversations with the young ones, the old ones, and it's so interesting, because if we do anything, we inform each other, guys, I'm going where, pray for me, and they will pray, or so-and-so is in hospital, or I'm sick, I'm doing this. So that's that.
What a support structure.
It is.
That's exactly what it sounds like for me.
No, it is.
Were you always this shy?
I'm not shy. I'm not shy. I'm one of the very outspoken one. And I'm this one who just prefer order in the family. I'm young, but they know I'm the one who just speak her mind. this is wrong, we cannot be doing this. So my niece and nephews, they'll say, hey, Manbusi is very strict. So I'm that stricter one. I'm not shy.
Okay, maybe you're soft-spoken.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's wrong what I'm saying. You're not shy, you're soft-spoken. So how did you do debating then when you were younger, if you were very soft-spoken?
No, I did. I mean, at school, I was the very active one.
Yeah.
I mean, at school, I was a debater and I was a netball player.
I heard you played netball. What position?
Number 4, basis busy number 4 by
I'll
then.
tell you. So
Yeah,
if
it's
goal
the
shooter is number
middle.
1, goal attack is number 2,
2,
wing attack is
3.
number 2. We center.
Number 4, baby center, yes.
So when you'd control
no,
the game.
Yeah, I was. So I was playing netball, then I was the best, have cups and trophies, in fact. So my daughter as well, I mean, she plays netball. She plays for the first team at school. So it's my gift.
Because even, so you are, and you're just used to excellence, ne? Because you've always had good grades, you always in the first team. So do you feel like you apply pressure on yourself to always be excellent?
Yeah, I work hard. I work hard, and I can say a risk taker, because I don't just leave things to be. In fact, I didn't even write there. I was in a beauty contest as well. My friend will laugh to say, this one, you can do anything. I
Miss
mean, I have
what?
a friend. No, at high school.
Okay.
I was beauty. I was one of the. I was position number 3 or 2.
Okay.
So yeah, I used
So
to
you basically wanted to participate in everything?
No, everything. High school, I was participating in everything. I went to university. Also, I was playing netball, but as well, one of the ACE students as well, making sure that I finish my degree on time. I finished my LLB, higher degree on time. So unfortunately, and I've done a lot of things at an early age. I was a teenage mother, you know.
Oh, yeah.
At high school.
So now when you're a teenage mother and you are this excellent person, you know, do you not think, wenzani, Booth?
It was a disappointment for me more than anything. I had a very supportive mother and my father, my siblings as well. But as well, a good friend of mine, Johanna Timunye, we grew up together. She's the one when I was at home, bringing homeworks, bringing work. Some of my teachers, and by then, Pella, when you are pregnant, you are chased out of the school.
Yes.
Fortunately, my parents had to negotiate with the principal. We knew a friend of the principal to say, can you allow her at least a month?
Because they can see the potential, like you're clever and you work hard.
So then, for a month, I was at home. In fact, I was going to school, being pregnant, facing that rejection, because it's a lot of rejection.
Yeah, it's a lot of judgment.
Yes.
It's a lot of judgment.
Yeah, some classmates saying, no, you're making us sleep. Yes, that thing. Yes, one of my teachers, apparently when I was at home, he used to tell them, no, don't think when you are not sleeping, nabo kokobenu at night, and think that she's the one who's making you to sleep.
Good.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's it. Got married as well, have a daughter out of marriage. My son is now married. I'm a
this
grandmother. Yes.
Umpilo, why is this in Matenzel?
Pelangiting, I had a child when I was
I know that, but is he related to Tulima Tenzel?
No, they are not, but Timande, you've heard that day when she was saying Timande and she was also saying Timande Pambolin. So I don't know, maybe they
There's
are
something,
related something.
because me, I thought maybe they, you know, they're like, okay, now go public protector, now go,
Yeah, we normally say Pilo, your aunt. I'm interviewing your aunt. Yes.
All right, so although there were some stirrings of unease from the start with questions raised around Advocate Mkhwebane's suitability for the job, it is her integrity and tenacity that has endeared her to the South African public. We continue this conversation right after this. She was the youngest of the final 5 candidates for public protector. She beat off heavyweight competition from high court judges, even a former deputy public protector. Her cool head during the interview process, not to mention being one of the only interviewees, guys, to remember the MP's names when she was quizzed. We think it helped her stand out. Was that like you knew by Yazin? If I call everyone here by name, I was blind.
I think as well respecting authority, because I mean I was giving them the, in fact, have that close conversation and to say, you know, I acknowledge you.
I'm aware of the job that you do.
Yes, and I respect, and I know I don't take it light or for granted, because you are representing South Africans and you need to make sure that you get the right candidate. But it was a very interesting interview, and yeah.
You were so calm. You were being grilled for like an hour straight, and you were just so calm.
Yeah.
What was the preparation like? Was it, when, like, do you prepare a day before, a week before, a month before?
I think it was a week or 2 weeks. The preparations, but I think again the biggest preparation I did was prayer. Yes, I'm a prayerful person, and again praying, consulting with my pastor, we were praying. So that calmness was more of that, you know, the Holy Spirit,
yes,
being there and being calm.
But then, I mean, you basically get thrust into the public eye from that hour. I mean, public, we all watched, we were eating popcorn, we were watching the movies.
I know, sleeping very late
You
in
know,
the AMs.
and everyone's talking about you. You know that every WhatsApp group is discussing you guys. No, hi, you know. So immediately you thrust into the spotlight, and the person before you already commanded so much attention in the light. Does that not make you wary a bit? Because I mean, you can be a person like, guys, me, I'm just here for the law and to be a public protector. Please, easy with your cameras. Do you have that, you know, that choice to not be as public?
Yes, I would appreciate not to be that, as you say.
Yeah.
Not to say I'm shy, but sometimes I would prefer just to keep my distance and space and just do my work. But it's so unfortunate that, yes, once you agree to be in this particular position, therefore you are, you know, I'm a public servant and I'm a people's person who can be told anything
at any given time.
At any given time, yeah. So I'm fine with that, and I'm doing my work, and I'm also saying I would want to help South Africans because I'm there just to serve them, to protect them from this Goliath. Which is the state, and they don't have the resources to take the state to court. Therefore, we are there as the public protector to say we can help you.
So that's how you would define your role, that you are the person who is there to take care of citizens if anything should come up between them and the state.
And the state, definitely, because another role of the public protector is being a mediator. Yeah. Because it's not only the investigations which we are conducting. I would say 90% of our investigations, Anele, we resolve them through mediation process or your alternative dispute resolution. I mean, since for the 2016-17, around 10,000 complaints which we've resolved through that particular process.
Resolved?
Yes, so it's what we are doing. Now, the only thing which unfortunately is in the media is those high-profile cases. And it's like you need to only focus on a certain direction, which is only 10% of our work. And again, those cases are detailed, and hence we end up writing a report. And when we write a formal report, the intention is to say, how do we correct this from happening in the future? Okay. So that's why we write a report. And again, if we are resolving, possibly every time we're receiving a lot of maybe complaints from Home Affairs, for instance, or Human Settlement, then we conduct a systemic investigation just to check where are the gaps, where are the challenges, and then we issue the formal report. In that particular aspect, or when there's corruption or abuse of state resources.
So you would never, just start a case without it being filed where they come to the public protector and say, you know, this is going wrong? You don't just wake up and decide.
No, I can.
You can.
I can do that.
Okay.
The law, the Public Protector Act allows me. I can do a case on initiative.
Okay.
For instance, the SASA matter.
Yes.
Where the minister couldn't submit or the issue of
the
not
grants
appointing
and
the company on time, where we are investigating, or I'm investigating the undue delay. Why the delay to implement the court decision?
Right.
So that's one of the own initiatives.
So that means you have to continuously know what's happening in the country all the time, so that you can see, hey, there's something irregular there.
I'm on Twitter, I'm on social media. I've got my communication team, which will send me information. But because of capacity constraints, that's why I've been saying, I think you've heard a lot of stories, why the public protector is quiet, we don't have a public protector, why is she quiet about the Gupta leaks, about
like,
this
I've
and
been here
that?
for less than a year, can't imagine,
Because I needed, remember we still have a backlog of cases to resolve. We've got people who are coming, you know, throwing stones at our offices, I must say.
How do you take the stones? Because with the Reserve Bank thing, they threw an entire mountain, not just stones, the Table Mountain, they just put it up. How do you take that? Because you're an A-grade student, you are A-class netball player, always excelling, and then you get a knock like that. How do you take it?
That's why I accepted the
ruling.
Not the ruling, Anele. I think I need to clarify that. I agreed to the setting aside of that remedial action. After realizing to say no, you know, again, realizing that this was not my intention of amending the constitution or of even instructing Parliament what to do. I then said, no, it's fine. I'm agreeing to the setting aside. So unfortunately, the process which followed after, because as the public protector, my legal team was there just to make sure that the judge signs the consenting order. But well, the process took a certain direction where then they presented and the judge decided to reserve judgment and issue the judgment. Because normally, in a normal course of things, when you agree to the setting aside,
you don't need to go that far.
It doesn't need to go that far, but possibly he felt it needs to go to that particular extent. I mean, it's the same in a criminal matter where a person is saying, I'm pleading guilty, I agree to everything.
Then you still do that.
Why do I have to call witnesses? Why do I have to go on and then issue a judgment instead of just finalizing? But I think it's one of those things where I said it's a learning process as well. And the judgment is there. We've got elements of the judgment which we'll have to take on its lessons going forward, you know, how the process we followed. But at the end of the day, we're going ahead and doing our work.
Okay, listen, we're out of time. Please stay as level-headed and as calm as you are. And I mean, for me, even you saying, okay, I hear what you're saying. I digress. Let's move aside. I think it means that the next 6 years that we have you for are going to be great. So thank you so much for your time. I understand you are the public protector, so you must go. You have got bigger things to do.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. Please send love to your family and say what's up to the WhatsApp group.
I'll tell them now to say, you know, we were rocking with Anele. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Listen, I hope this helped you get to know your public protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, a little bit more beyond the negative coverage and the questions about credibility. After the break, we talk about women's health with a woman who has first-hand experience of what it's like to suffer in silence through pain and life-threatening surgery. She penned a book titled Surviving I.C.U. She's an entrepreneur, she's an author, she's wife of a former football player, Matthew Booth. Sonia Booth will be joining us. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Real Talk with me, Anele, right here on SABC3. The stage is yours. While we celebrate strong women every week, regardless of the month here on Real Talk, our reproductive health as women is something that affects us all and can wreak havoc on our lives if we don't pay attention to our bodies. We all know that early detection saves lives, and in the medical realm, that applies to every type of ailment. Fibroids are the most frequently seen tumors of the female reproductive system. It is estimated that between 20 and 50% of women within reproductive age have fibroids, although not all are diagnosed. In February 2015, a CT scan revealed that my next case had a burst cyst and 4 fibroids. This would be the beginning of a nightmarish ordeal, which saw Sonia Booth fighting for her life in ICU. She had 3 operations in 4 days and spent 2 weeks in hospital. We're welcome to share her story and to enlighten us, Sonia Booth, to the couch. Thank you for being here. I'm annoyed that you look as young as you looked 5 years ago. I'm just going to have to ask you before we get to the serious matters, what are you putting on that skin? What's going on? What is it? Is it sleep, love, health, wealth, skin?
African butter.
Oh,
as they call it.
It's that African butter. We don't sleep. It's the African.
And something else I won't talk about because my niece is in, she's in our vicinity.
Oh, okay, okay. I also see what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
The adults get it.
I think you get it.
No. After mural activities, we like to call it.
Something like that.
Something along those lines. Thank you so much for joining us. I saw your article in one of the weekend newspapers, and we were like, okay, this is a little serious. We have to chat to you. What is it, February 2015? Was it Feb?
February 26th, in 2015, that's when I just got pain suddenly, when I had been perfectly healthy without any problems. And
what does it feel like?
I don't know if you've ever experienced ovulation pains.
Is it that like the period pain that people go through
nothing
where
on it? No.
You scrunch up into a ball and you don't even go to work.
Worse than that. Like there's no ways of describing it except I think the closest I can get to describing it is if you've ever slammed your car door, a taxi, that is, the black taxi, the sliding doors, and your fingers were caught there. That would be the closest I could get to it.
Where does it hit you? It hits you like here and at the bottom?
Where you would normally get
your period pain.
Ovulation pains. Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Intense pain.
So obviously it just, does it hit you once and leaves you alone, or does it hit you once and stays full dinner?
No, at intervals. It would hit you, and then to a point where it actually literally takes your breath away. And you go, and it's the worst kind of pain you can imagine. Excruciating.
Do you ignore it, or are you immediately like, let us go to the hospital right now?
It's not the kind of pain that you can ignore, which I thought at the time I could. I thought taking painkillers would take the pain away, which I did. I mean, I really ransacked our bathroom cabinet. The small fist aid kit that has got all sorts of pain tablets.
Like an aspirin.
Went through all of those, and by midnight I realized that I was in trouble. I knew that something was not right.
Were you prone to heavy, painful ovulation pain?
No. In fact, I used to get pain here without actually realizing that they were ovulation pains. And how I got to discover that they were actually ovulation pains was when I started researching for my book, and the fact that you only really have them for 2 days.
Yeah.
But then when this went on for that long, then I realized that no, I'm dealing with something much, much bigger than what I thought.
So how soon do you get diagnosed?
I had to wait 2 days because my GP couldn't really understand what I was trying to describe. And I mean, even though she has been my GP or our family doctor for many years, she never really she could never pinpoint or try and eliminate all sorts. But an ultrasound was what revealed the extent of what was going on in my body. But moreover, a CT scan gave an indication as to how big the problem was.
So were you very far gone?
No, I mean, I had already
had to put up with all that pain, and she didn't even want to describe me any pain medication without knowing what the diagnosis was. You know, in her mind, it would have been irresponsible as a GP to prescribe me something when she didn't know what she was dealing with, and only my gynae, who later determined what was going through, was in a better position to prescribe something that was going to sustain me until the operations.
Okay, so from when, you know, we've done the CT scan, we've done the ultrasound, and I'm pretty sure she looks, she's like, yo, you know, like she's surprised at what's going on inside of you. How quickly then do you go into the operations?
I saw my GP on a Sunday. My gynae could only see me 2 days later, and I mean, he really tried to fit me in. And so on the Wednesday, I saw my gynae, and then the following day, I was operated on. So I only had a day.
Did you ever think you're going to die?
Not at the time, no, because, you know, it was supposed to be a very quick procedure, you know, a laparoscope. Because at the time, he knew the sizes of the fibroids, and he said to me, listen, I'll try and do a laparoscope, but worst case scenario, it will have to be a myomectomy. Which is like a bikini cut. And then only when, after the CT scan, when he realized that one of the fibroids was too big for a laparoscope, then that's when I went into a bigger procedure. For me, what scared me was that I went into theater thinking I was going to be out in no time,
and
with
into recovery and
exactly, and I had conditioned myself psychologically for a very small incision, like 2 inches at the most, and only to, you know, come out of theater with like a T-junction
on your body there.
Like, yes, a massive scar going from underneath my breastplate, and then around the bikini area as well. That for me was, emotionally it wasn't easy to digest that, because you realize that, you know, the problem was bigger,
severe than you
it
thought.
was a lot more serious than what they thought.
Did you know what fibroids were and a cyst before that? Because, I mean, I'm sitting here, and yesterday I didn't. Because you were coming on, I was like, okay, let me have a look. And I'm a woman, I'm 33 years old, so you would think that this is something that's common knowledge to us, because you can get it as commonly as a woman, right?
Yes.
Did you know what fibroids were? Did you know what a cyst is? And did you know how bad it can get in your head?
I knew, but not to a point of actually being so well informed to a point where I know what decision to take, because only after my experience in ICU, when I decided, you know, I'm going to write a memoir, hoping that my story will help motivate and inspire other women, but more importantly, to make them aware that you need to know your family history. Because I knew a little bit, but not to a point where I would have been in a better position to make a decision as to what the best procedure for me at the time was. So I wasn't clued up to that degree, no.
And if you had to, in 3 sentences, explain to someone, like someone who's watching right now, what are fibroids, and, you know, what is a cyst, and can you get fibroids and not have a cyst? Can you get a cyst and not have fibroids?
From what I know, I mean, obviously, a medic would describe or distinguish in different terms or in different ways. But for me, uterine fibroids, which is what I had, I just know they're hideous looking things. I mean, and then apparently some of them can grow to even bigger than a rugby ball.
Good Lord.
I mean, I was watching a program on TV the other day, and a woman had a fibroid big enough, and they actually thought that she was 9 months pregnant. She looked like she was 9 months pregnant. That's how big it was. It was actually the world's biggest cyst. So my cyst had burst, and that's what was causing me pain. According to gynaes, you can actually have fibroids in your uterine
and be fine
without even, and you won't know about it. They're not supposed to cause pain. They're not, and you should not be experiencing pain. What caused the pain for me was the burst cyst.
Yeah, okay. More with Sonia Booth when we return later in the show. We'll also be joined by a renowned OB-GYN, Dr. Thandimtsi. We're going to ask her a few questions, professional ones, because her and I can talk, but I mean, we really didn't study medicine, so we can only go so far. Stay with us. Sonia Booth is in studio today, not discussing fashion, motherhood, or the life of a soccer wife, but her life-changing trauma over the past 2 years. So she was left with a scar that is a constant reminder of the harrowing ordeal, but also that she is a survivor of something that has killed thousands of others. She decided to pour out her pain onto paper and write a book called Surviving I.C.U. So you said you decided, you know, when you write this memoir, these are things that you need to document. When did you decide to write it? Whilst you're in ICU, when you're having 3 operations in 4 days, you know, when do you decide, oh, I have to tell people about this?
I mean, in ICU, you know, first of all, I wasn't even aware that that's where I was going to end up. That was from a bowel obstruction after, you know, after I had been in hospital for 3 days after the initial operation.
What's a bowel obstruction? When you find like an infection in your...
You know, there's controversy regarding what happened to me, and it's something that I'm still actually trying to digest, because my new gynae reckons it wasn't a bowel obstruction, but I mean, let's put that aside. So let's just say it was a bowel obstruction, and that led me to ICU. And so you lying on a bed in ICU, and all you're hearing, I don't know if you've been to ICU, it's like the coldest environment. It's actually very, very depressing.
Yeah.
You don't wish it on your worst enemy. And all you're hearing is machines and life support machines going. Exactly. That's all you're hearing. I mean, even the nurses and the doctors are going about the ward very quietly.
So it's not as jovial on the other wards.
No, it's,
you know, where they're like, hello, would you like some tea? Wake up.
If I were to describe that scene, I've never been to a mortuary, but I've seen enough movies to kind of get a sense of what a mortuary feels like.
Well,
that's
right
how
next
depressing.
To the mortuary, ICU,
Exactly. Because I mean, there's no guarantee that you're going to come out of that. So for me was, you know, having to deal with all of that, because now all of a sudden you're finding yourself and there's tubes coming out from everywhere. You know, so all I saw was just tubes everywhere, oxygen, a tube and all sorts. I mean, I had tubes coming out from my neck, one into my throat, draining my you know, because my digestive system was no longer working. So all I mean, was just traumatized by all these tubes coming out from all sorts of places. And as I said as well, I see you being so cold, and I'm waking up and I'm alone, and this is like 4 o'clock in the morning, and you don't know what's happened. You know that you're in this cold room, and it's frightening actually. So I think that was my darkest moment, and there and then I thought, you know what, if I make it out alive, if I come out on the other side, and if I'm in a position to share what I've gone through, hoping that it would help another woman out there, I think I have a duty and a responsibility to write about my experiences, hoping that another woman will take the time to be better informed about the different conditions that women face and the different options for treatments that are out there, and the fact that you must explore all those options and don't be rushed into making any decision. Because personally, I feel that the first op
was you were not well informed around it.
I think more information could have been made available to me. And I say that only because when I came across Dr. Gary Sudworth and realizing the work that he does to get rid of uterine fibroids, I realized that, you know, I perhaps could have explored that option and
asked more questions, asked better questions.
Exactly.
What did it do for your soul?
It breaks you. You can never come out of ICU the same person. No chance. It takes something away from you, because you're bitter for a very, very long time because, you know, you go through phases. At some point, you know, there were days where I was lying in you know, in an ICU bed and feeling sorry for myself, getting emotional, why me, you know, and then you snap out of it and you're like, if not you, then why the next person? What's so special about you? And then you go through phases where you're optimistic and you're like, you know what, I'm going to survive ICU and I'm going to come out on the other side stronger. And then the following morning you wake up and you just in tears. But what also got me was the fact that I was on an ice cube diet for 4 days. So for 4 days, the only thing I could put in my mouth, in the 4 days that I was in ICU, the only thing that could be put in my mouth was ice cubes at intervals. And they would monitor the intake of, because obviously once it melts in your mouth, they would insist that I take it out because they didn't want too many liquids into my bowel, because remember my bowel was...
It's not working.
It was not working. That's why I had a drainage tube. So for 4 days, I was just on ice cubes.
So when you do start eating, what do you eat? Like, what's your first meal? You're like, I want wings.
For two to 3 weeks, I couldn't just... They couldn't just introduce food. So it had to, you know, it was a gradual diet from ice cube. It had to be a liquid diet, and then semi-liquid, and then pureed foods like, you know, what
like
the kids eat.
Like we're teaching a baby solids.
Exactly. And by the time that solid foods were introduced, I was actually not interested because I couldn't take it. Like, it wreaks havoc, I mean, on your emotional well-being, and you are very bitter for a very, very long time. You're bitter at the universe for having dealt you such cards, and yeah.
And when you said you were in your bed and you looked at your dad's picture, your dad who's passed away, and you were just like, you know what, take me now, Jesus, like, this is too much pain. Is this before you go into the ops, is it in your recovery process?
That was a few months later when I suffered a pulmonary embolism, and I'm sure you know the late Vuyo Mbuli.
Yes.
Died within 20 minutes of having suffered a pulmonary embolism. So in the same year, so forget about what I went through, the fact that I ended up in ICU and, you know, had a good 6 weeks of recovery, bed rest at home. A few months later in the same year, not only did I survive ICU, but I survived a pulmonary embolism.
Which is not related to...
It was related to a reconstructive surgery to fix the damage that had been done to my body and my bowels. And then, so after that op, within 10 days, I suffered a PE. And that's when I actually didn't care if I actually lived.
Like, it's fine.
Which is an irony, because I fought for my life in ICU. And I survived that, only to be dealt with or to be thrown a bigger blow a few months later. So the irony in that, when I was in ICU, I was actually wanting to fight for my life. I was trying to stay optimistic, but the universe had a wicked sense of humor. And a few months later, I was actually at my lowest point with the kind of pain that I suffered from the PE, where I actually wished the next breath would be my last, because for me, that was the only guarantee
of no more pain.
Of no more pain.
Sure, my word. Okay, so I want you to watch something. The key word here is Chuck Norris.
Hi, love. I just wanted to let you know that your strength over the last couple of years due to your ill health has been truly remarkable. And the fact that you've shared your experience with other women, and more importantly their partners, has been truly commendable. And also just let you know that myself and the boys think that you're a fantastic mum and wife, and we love you lots.
Wow. Do you have tissues?
I do have tissues. Okay, I'll get you.
That's not right.
Oh, that's not right. She says that was her Chuck Norris. He was the wall and the strength of the entire ordeal. We're going to get her tissues. We'll be back after the break. We'll be joined by a gynae in studio to further explore this. Don't go anywhere. Thousands of South African women silently go through this painful condition, and the myths are plenty as to the causes and the proper treatment. Some estimate that up to 30 to 77% of women will develop fibroids sometime during their childbearing years. But also important to know is that in more than 90% of fibroid cases, the tumors are non-cancerous. To help us discuss in detail fibroids and our reproductive health is obstetrician and gynecologist Dr. Thandimtsi. Please welcome her to the show. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So I think the one thing that is going through everyone who's watching now is, how do we prevent it? Is there a way to prevent it? Are there things that I should be doing right now as a woman to make sure that I don't have to go through this ordeal that Sonia's been telling us about?
The only thing you can prevent about fibroids is getting them bigger, but you can't prevent the origin.
Yeah.
They are relatively hereditary, very common amongst us black women, and very common amongst people who haven't had babies and stuff.
Okay.
But they are definitely hereditary.
So
you can't prevent them.
But what, do I regularly check? And if so, how often?
I think once a year I would recommend when you are 25 and older. Actually, I've taken out fibroids in 19-year-olds over the past 2 years. So it's very difficult to say, but I think the 25 to 30 upwards woman should have at least a scan one every 2 years.
Okay.
And if we see a tiny fibroid, then it means more frequent. It will depend on the size of the fibroid that we pick up. But if there's nothing, you can take, come back in about a year or two. But obviously, if you've got symptoms, you've got to come earlier.
Okay, so Sonia's symptoms were, you run us through them again. Sonia said absolute excruciating pain, like you've got ovulation pains, right?
Yes. For me, the reason why I ended up not doing a lap scope was because one of them was, it wasn't big, too big compared to, like I said, the other ones being the size of a rugby ball. But the one was just a little bit bigger than a golf ball. That's why I couldn't have the small incision, the lap scope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now those are her symptoms, right? What other symptoms then should we be looking out for?
Fibroids are mostly asymptomatic, meaning absolutely nothing, except for the fact that you're going to see, especially for thinner people as big as me will struggle to see that the tummy is growing because I'm used to having the big one. But for people who are thinner, you can see that, no, man, something is wrong here. And then we'll start the symptoms. Symptoms would be things like bleeding, like some kind of dull ache, because you may get pressure symptoms from fibroids, but those have to be very, very large, obviously. The small ones are, an incidental finding sometimes when you're complaining of something else, like infertility. Quite a lot of patients that come to us wanting to have a baby, you do a sonar, you find that there is a fibroid somewhere, sitting somewhere.
And could that be blocking us from conceiving?
Yes. Fibroids do contribute to infertility in a significant way. Different mechanisms that they may block the tubes, they may expand the womb and make it so big. And if they are in the lining, the area that we call the endometrium, they can cause miscarriages. So there are quite a number of symptoms or effects that can come from fibroids.
Sonia, going into your first operation, were you given a worst case scenario? Like, this is how bad this could get?
The worst case scenario was laparotomy. That's the bikini line incision. Slightly bigger than a C-section incision. That was my worst case scenario, which I was well aware of. But I was not prepared for the myomectomy, which was the incision that went from underneath my breast plate.
So, as a doctor, when there's a patient and you're going to operate on them, and like you say, you've taken a fibroid out of a 19-year-old, what is the worst case scenario? Could I die?
The biggest problem with fibroids is bleeding that I've seen. They bleed because they develop their own blood supply from the uterus. So that's our biggest complication. What she had is very rare, I would say.
Okay, good.
It's something that you really can't predict. But I always say in life, there is no treatment that doesn't have complications or side effects.
True.
So whenever you go to theatre, you must prepare for the worst. I mean, the worst case scenario is what you had. But a significant number of patients that come and they have surgery. I'm not talking now about the other options that we're talking about. I think we're addressing surgery at the moment.
Yes, we are.
Worst case scenario is usually bleeding. Yes, you can develop an embolus. You know, it's so rare in somebody as thin as you are. So it's quite, unless you've got a very strong family history, there's other things that have been happening in your life before. Embolus, very rare, but we still do cover, depending on the age. I mean, if you are 40 and above, you have to be covered for an embolus. You have to have Clexane. You have to move early after the op and all that. You had also had a bowel obstruction.
Yes.
That's totally unpredictable. It depends on what we find inside. For instance, especially patients that have had previous cesarean sections, you find that there's adhesions inside, which are little strings that can happen. Those patients tend to develop ileus and intestinal obstruction much more than the other patients. But also not as common as we see. I mean, I work in the black community especially. And I mean, I do fibroids, I don't know how many a month. So it's one of those operations that can be routine. But I want to emphasize the fact that routine is, you know, you've got to, when you sign that consent, when you go to theatre, you've got to know that anything can happen when you are going to a dentist to have a tooth extraction. So that as long as you interfere with the body,
something can go wrong.
Something can go wrong.
And in closing, can they return?
Yes. Not the same fibroid, obviously, coming back.
Another one can develop.
Another one can grow.
And develop in a like to be bigger and different with new character traits, clearly.
It can get bigger, it can,
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, you know, I've seen, one of the biggest fibroids I've seen is what you were describing, that goes up to the...
Being able to meet.
Yeah, more than that.
You have been so enlightening. Well, you've been enlightening because it's your personal story, but also you, doctor, thank you so much. I've learned so much today, and I think, thank you so much for the women as well who are watching. We need to get checked. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of this conversation. The takeaway here is never leave anything to chance. Thank you so much to Sonia Booth and Dr. Mzi for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today. From us as well as the team, we'll see you next time. Bye for now.